Hi, guys. This is Lauren from Early Intervention in Color, and you're listening to the PreGame Podcast. Bless the bottle. Next.
It's season 4, episode 13 of the PreGame Podcast.
Yeah,
we got a special guest. She's related to some members of the PreGame Podcast.
Yes, she is.
And she's wonderful. One of my favorite people in life.
It's going to be a compliment off today.
Grammy's baby.
Yeah, one of them.
It's the
Grammy's
golden,
baby.
It's the golden child.
No.
We didn't use
Grammy's
the light
baby
today.
is
That's
this
just her.
one right here.
And this is why we brought you. So we can get this type of shit settled.
If Grammy was to pick,
Oh,
going over there out the
1,000%.
gate.
Now, I don't know.
That's cute.
1,000%.
it is what it is.
It's happening already.
I don't know
We're
how
going to get some of this shit settled.
But mom
tonight.
and dad, we right here. With
No,
it.
absolutely not.
Now, look.
Absolutely not. No.
What?
No. Mom, Wesley. Dad, maybe me.
Oh, first name.
Hold on.
She
now,
calling
now,
us.
hold
Okay.
on.
She
Hold
sure
on
can.
now. Hold on.
Hold on,
We just
Seinfeld.
had a discussion about this last week.
Right, we did talk about
Here
it.
goes Mom. I wanted to be around Wesley more.
Oh,
Yep.
she said that out loud?
Can I get some context, man?
She said that out loud?
But can we get some
That's
context,
private
though?
talk. You say that
When
to
I
somebody
was
else.
from like 12 to 16, she was like, I just wanted to be around
Those
Wesley
were
more.
those
'cause
were
you just
dark
had such an
times.
attitude
Those
about
were dark times for you.
Thank you.
Kyrie, remember on the show when you said when you're a teenager and you're a girl and you're like going through things?
Oh, yeah, there's
and
a lot.
Things are changing in your body.
Yeah.
Everybody just neglected.
And it's hard to have
that
a
was
release.
happening.
Those were dark times, scary times.
Dark ages.
Wow.
So will you admit
The long winter.
before I introduce you, right?
Well,
that
if you don't know who she is by now, you're not even listening.
Will you admit that because of those changes, you had an attitude problem?
I wouldn't say that it was a problem. I would say that I had
It was
an
adjustment.
attitude as a result of life adjustments.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's
can
real.
Right.
But can we all come together and agree that those were scary and dark times?
Were you unlivable? Like,
I wouldn't say that.
She wasn't like that.
Okay.
No.
So did y'all make me
And I-
sound
and I
like,
didn't-
uh-oh, she home.
Like, she like scratching people
I
or
didn't
something?
have
No.
I didn't have a problem with Lauren.
You said it out the way, didn't you?
That's my best friend. One of them. I didn't care. You know, Lauren came home. She went to her room, did her homework,
And I also engaged.
and that was it.
Lauren, you
I
eat? Yeah. Like that type of shit?
mean,
That's
Were
pretty
you
accurate.
Daria?
no.
Nah, she wasn't like that.
It just depends. Your mood, like one day is like this, and another is like this. It just is what it is.
All right.
It's growing pains. That's all.
Yeah.
Indeed. Let's get into the show, though.
This is more fun. This is more fun.
All right, so everybody, please give a round of applause for my beautiful and very talented and very intelligent sister, Lauren.
Hey.
These affirmations.
Oh, that's about to go compliment crazy. You two are
Yeah,
gonna
it's going to be
it's
a
going to be a
compliment.
compliment battle between you two.
Now, we wanted to bring Lauren on the show because she's got something great going on for the city. And really,
you left that on last week.
Is that a
sorry.
fan?
That motherfucker was on all
is.
week.
Is that
It
heat?
gets hot in here. Trust me. Trust me.
Running
All
up
week.
his electric bill.
I'm sorry.
but yeah, we brought
It will not happen again.
Lauren on to really discuss some things that parents should think about. You know, there's a lot of young families, a lot of young parents listen to the show, and we want to go ahead and get into that.
Because she is
a speech and language pathologist.
you may just sound like a parent know-it-all. And you
Yeah,
know,
no.
man,
She's
I'm not
certified.
even-
She's
Parent.
certified in this thing.
For sure.
Things to think about before you shoot the club up.
Definitely.
Today.
Yes.
Now, can you please go ahead and tell the people what
After.
you do? Tell them what you do.
So I'm a pediatric speech pathologist.
Boy, it sound like it make money. Bag talk. I can
Bring
feel
out
it.
the Brinks
Bang.
truck.
Okay,
I had to
so
boss my life.
There's a lot of paths that you can take within the field of speech pathology, but there's like the pediatric side and then there's the adult geriatric side. I'm a pediatric speech pathologist. And right now I work with kids birth to 3. So we call that early intervention. And it means what it says. You intervene early for kids that have
Take your notepads out.
developmental
Get 'em out.
delays, delayed milestones, developmental disabilities like autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, and other developmental disorders. So I do home-based therapy. So I see about like 20 to 25 kids a week, an hour per kid in their home. And I do therapy and I coach their parents on ways to target their language skills so that they can progress with their development in the right way.
Okay.
That's awesome.
I got some questions.
Impacting the community. But before we
I
get
got
into
some
the
questions.
before we get into the interview,
She said she don't do geriatric, bro. Nothing for you.
God damn it.
right? Yeah. let's get into the pregame.
I do have some geriatric experience, but
So I
that
can
was
get you.
that's not my.
I'm nothing on
that's
teaching
not
old
my
people how to
area.
talk again. It's over.
Got you. Yeah.
It's more so like
take what
Just
you
get
got.
on out of
it's
here.
more so. It's more so like cognitive skills and like swallowing.
Okay.
Oh man.
Yeah,
We call it dysphagia. So like
There's a
when
joke
you.
There's a disgusting joke to be made, but we're not gonna do that today.
Anyways, so when adults get older, especially adults with like dementia or Parkinson's disease, they kind of lose their ability to like speak and also to like use their musculature to swallow.
Yeah.
And so there's like safety concerns with that. And so you have to figure out what their diet should be and then work on like cognitive skills like safety, awareness, recall, memory.
What was so you
That's why I'm
you
not
said a
gonna be
word
in.
before you started? It was a D.
Dysphagia?
Dysphagia. Is that the inability to swallow?
Yes.
Okay.
Or like
Hey,
issues with swallowing.
Get me out of here if I can't have no food no more.
But you know the people that eat
I don't
like
want it no more.
pureed
I want you to
food,
use-
Take me now.
Use dysphagia in your everyday
pureed
life
food in the
from here on
nursing
out.
home, those are people that have dysphagia. Pureed food, pureed food, soft food.
Slushy eggs, slushy breakfast.
Or
Did
they
you
have-
imagine puree
or
in my
they
double
have-
cheeseburger?
They had a boost for breakfast and an intro for
Sometimes
dessert.
they do. They'll have
Yeah.
like burgers ground up.
Somebody I just hit the scissor.
And then sometimes they have to have their liquid
dysphagia. She's a
thickens.
spitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Right. That's why I
I'm
wanted
done.
him.
I'm done
to
talking
go
about
there
it.
with it.
Can we please get into the pregame?
'Cause I was thinking about-
We can't.
Jesus.
I mean, we're talking about shit back in the day, like a whole bunch of people had dysphagia back in the day.
Okay.
Now nobody has it in this day and
Yeah,
age.
apparently everybody-
in the
nobody
no
has dysphagia
condom
anymore.
generation.
Yeah.
This face is gone.
Dysphagia used to be a
Hey,
thing.
we live in a great time.
Everybody know how to swallow.
You have to talk your person through dysphagia. It's not
All
that big a deal.
right.
So that's that. But that's not why we here
I won't do
today.
you like that.
I've been drinking pineapple juice all girl.
I'm good. I've been drinking. I've been running my water, everything. I'm hydrated.
Pre-game pop quiz.
Yeah.
All right, pregame pop quiz.
All right, I'll go first. So, if you're a speech and language pathologist, if you could work with the celebrity children of any celebrity, who would it be?
No Jay-Z, no Beyonce.
She don't like them.
Good, but that's where the bag is.
I wouldn't say that I don't like them. I don't know.
Your question's stupid.
Oh,
There you go. You do know.
well, they're not really celebrities,
We'll
but
take
there's
it.
this show called Outdaughtered about the only set of
Come on, Lifetime.
it's
One
the
of
only
them channels,
set
man.
of all-girl quintuplets on TLC.
Oh, that's a nightmare.
I've heard of it.
I pray for that.
I
for that,
love
for that
their
brother.
family. I would work with their family.
I pray for that brother that had them kids. That is not fair.
TLC ain't talking about nothing in many years.
It's been
bad.
reality. Yeah, who was it? That's Honey Boo Boo, right? Honey
Yep.
Boo Boo. That's her channel.
600
Johnny
Pound
K.
Life. All that shit.
Damn.
Life is
Yeah.
trife.
or
Hoarders?
any black celebrities. I would work with their kids
Tight.
in an instant.
Got you.
Tight.
I'll piggyback off of that. Which rappers do you think needed a speech pathologist and they missed the mark? Their early intervention didn't get to them in time. Just listen to them talk. Like you tell they didn't develop properly. Any glaring people?
Probably Kodak Black.
Y'all.
Damn.
Y'all.
I can see that.
He
I can
need
see
help.
that,
He's got some
yeah.
like
I can hear that, excuse me.
disorganization in his speech,
Plus he's slow.
sound
A
errors.
little slow.
He flat out slow. And I'll say
Hey,
it.
ZZ still go hard though.
It does.
Play it.
He's in
after the
prison.
show.
But I
He
can't
is.
think
He
of any
stayed. That's
other
his home.
ones.
His second home.
I just saw a whole Gucci Mane interview and it made me think of him. Like he probably could have used some intervention back in the day. I think it might be his new teeth though to make him
Maybe.
talk this way.
Oh,
Definitely
for sure.
the dentures.
Dentition has a lot to do with speech sometimes.
Dentition. We're gonna
Those
learn
are not
some words
dentures.
today.
Those are veneers. He paid a lot of money.
He
for
did.
them. Those are permanent.
Porcelain. For sure. Shout out to him.
Marble.
My turn. Question for me. Lauren headquarters. Lauren Speech Pathologist headquarters. Okay, your Indianapolis has done great for you. What city are you putting your headquarters in to be able to service children globally?
I don't know.
You got to pick.
It just. Oh, you mean like if I could choose?
Yeah, if you could choose. You could choose.
Oh, Indianapolis.
You want to build it out of here?
Out the gate.
It's central.
Yes,
Respect-
I would love to do
respect
that.
my
there
shit.
are
I love
no
Indianapolis, but
Indianapolis.
people
as
tend
far
to go to
as,
bigger
like,
cities to headquarter.
True, but if you like, for example, Chicago. Before I went to grad school, I interned for a black speech pathologist that had his own practice. But there are like a few of them that are there. You know what I mean? Like, but Indy, there are no
Batman.
black-owned
Okay.
speech private practices here at all.
And I'm gonna do a double question. What is the ultimate goal
Seconds.
as a speech pathologist? Like, what is your pantheon of this is what I do and I'm the number one in the world?
I think it would be like if it works out, it would be to own my own clinic.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Private practice. Yeah, look at you.
Does a white coat come with that?
This what?
A white coat?
No, you
No
only
coat?
you have to have you do have to have a master's, but you don't have to have like a doctorate.
Okay.
We need those jobs in the family. Make it happen.
I'm gonna try.
Please.
Good turn.
Okay. So I know that you are a big Taylor Swift fan.
Okay, what?
Where's my board?
She is.
Okay, wait.
So I want to know.
You can ask what he wants.
I am a early.
technically,
I'm a big like early Taylor when
Lauren.
she first started.
Uh-oh.
We've already talked about
You're
this.
trying to get yourself embarrassed. You keep playing around.
Can I?
I
in
have
his
lost
defense,
my respect for Taylor when
it's
she
very
lied.
recent. It's very recent.
Okay, the last few years.
Trying
She
to get
lied about the
embarrassed.
Kanye stuff.
Lauren.
Yeah,
Okay.
that
The
just
thing
kind of
is, we were just in the car together. And you said there were a couple of Taylor Swift bangers
Well, we were somewhere
she has
else.
hits.
We were somewhere else, right?
that you were listening to recently. But
There
anyways,
are a couple of
I
songs she
wanna
has
know,
out right now that I like, but I'm not like
Right.
Why'd you do this?
Because I want to know.
Why would he
the
not?
question.
I don't know what he's on.
That's why we here.
No, now
He
listen
gonna
to
pay for this later. I don't know what's gonna happen.
No,
It's gonna happen
it's not bad. Come on, it's my sister. So tell us, which one is your favorite album and why?
Okay, let me think.
I don't even know what a Taylor Swift album is
Couldn't
called.
tell you one.
Listen. I think my favorite one. What was the title of that one? What was her? So she had like her second album, her sophomore album. I can't remember the title of it, but it had like this song called 15 on it, and Fearless and White Horse.
We'll fact check
and like
for you.
Shit,
Ooh, this
song
sounds
called White Horse.
This sounds like straight out of
This
Cartel. My
sounds
God.
like
15
Call
and White
Cajun.
Horse and snowing.
These were. So that
There's a
CD
song
came
called
out,
White Picket Fence.
Like my freshman year of high school, all of my friends liked this. Like it was just like the culture.
It was
at
a
that
cultural
time.
moment.
It was. That's my favorite one.
That's the number
Shout out
one
to
Taylor
T
Swift song.
Swift,
What's
man.
the one? Like the one.
It might be 15,
We
right?
are
Weren't
never
they early?
ever getting back together.
No.
No,
That's
there's
not the
one.
Oh.
Because
That's
the
the only one
15
I
goes
know.
like 15 at the end, right? It's like a ballad kind
When
of.
you're 15.
That one.
yeah.
See?
I know that one.
Yeah,
That
that might
was
be
a
the one.
popular song.
That's not the one though.
Fearless.
But that's not her number one.
What's the number one?
Oh, that
man?
album's called Fearless. I
Like,
don't-
okay,
I have
what's
no
her
idea.
party in the USA? That's
Ain't there one about the blood?
Bad Blood? No.
Yeah.
That's not number
That's-
one.
that's
Bad
recent.
blood.
Look,
Yeah.
look at you, Swifties.
Bad blood.
Kendrick's on that one.
He is.
No, I'm not a Swiftie.
Or Swifty.
Well, you're over here singing Never Getting Back Together. Kyrie's
That's the
over
only
here 15.
Taylor Swift song I've
What's
ever
his Bad
heard.
Blood? Okay, well.
I gotta go. What's the best Taylor Swift song? What is this?
I don't know why we're doing this.
Yeah, I don't know
I
why we're doing this
can't.
either. But listen, look.
I don't want to be here anymore.
Let's get. Yeah, this is interesting. But I do understand though. You do live in Taylor Swift land.
I do. Swiftum.
For sure. A lot of Swift
Yeah, she could
gas
be
stations.
y'all
Chick-fil-A.
tonight.
Yep.
Okay. Tonight.
Yep.
And wouldn't get bothered.
Nope.
Hey Tay.
No. They'd hoard her.
Oh
She
no, it'd
walked
be a
in
wrap.
that
She
mire.
couldn't
Be
move in
over.
it. She couldn't move in that mire.
Be
Oh,
over.
she's there all the time. They're used to it.
Shut up. What else
Sorry.
you got?
All right, let's move on, man. All right, so listen. So why speech and language?
Was that the last pop quiz question?
That was. I thought it was fire.
Just icebreaker.
Yeah, just get
You want more?
Yeah, just
Nope,
get you
I'm
loose.
good.
So listen, look. So why is speech and language pathology so important?
Speech and language is really important because it's the one thing that connects everyone as like human beings. It's communication, speech language. So when I
Great way of looking
started my undergrad at IU, one of my first classes, there was a quote on the board and it said, "Without language, one cannot think, wonder, dream, or imagine." And after that, I was like, wow, that's deep. Because, like, you're dreaming, there's, like, language surrounding your dream, right?
Yep.
Like, no one's talking, but in order for you to understand what's happening, language is symbolic. There has to be meaning. So speech and language is, like, life. And that's why it's really important. And the reason why I love early intervention is because this age group, you see the most progress, and this is during, like, a very critical period
Right.
of development. This is, like, the most critical time period for speech and language to develop.
Got you.
So...
That's a great one.
I want to give y'all some background information to Lauren. So, you could have done anything, right? Straight A's, just one B. Just one B your whole life, right? Just one?
Okay, I didn't have
I actually read an article that said you wanted to be a lawyer. I read it the other day.
I did used to want to be a
You did
lawyer.
some research.
Did you cry during the B? And you got the B?
I may have gotten really frustrated. I would cry if I got like like if I got like a C on a test or something,
Anger
especially in high
tears.
school, I would have like a panic attack.
Really?
Yeah.
I got this
So you're Randall.
C on this
Or
bit.
one time, one of my language teachers.
Definitely Randall.
was
You're
like-
Randall with it. Okay.
No, it's not as bad as Randall.
Okay.
She was like, I think I got like a C on like a written essay, and I was like, hey, like, what can I do to like improve my grade? Like, I can't, like, I have to get a higher grade because I got to maintain my like spot within my.
Top 30.
Oh, I remember
I'd
this.
say
This was
10,
something-
bro.
Y'all 25 in Pike? Mm-hmm. Oh, you're 30.
Yeah.
Okay. Man,
So I had to maintain my
25,
spot.
fuck.
And she was like, Lauren, actually, like, it's okay if you get a B.
Oh, that was a whole issue in the
I
household.
was
gonna tell your mom?
listen,
Oh, she was
I did.
hating. That was a hater.
Mom, let me tell you what she
1,000%.
said.
That's crazy.
That was one of my most challenging educators to deal with.
She knew you were coming too. She's, I'm gonna take her down a peg.
Yeah, mom went to war. Then mom go to war too. It was a whole issue, man.
I'd be in math class like, if I could
For
just
sure.
get a C.
I get a C. This motherfucker be good. I'm not gonna get in trouble.
Nigga. I can get a C. My
Run that.
grade would be close to having the C I need up from this D.
If I get a B in this bitch,
If I get a B on this test, I'm in deep shit.
We're talking about through college too, no
Can't
B's,
relate.
because that's crazy.
That's when you got the
You
first
got an A in
one.
finite.
I actually think I got a B in finite. I
Okay.
do. I think I got
That's
like
genius
a
level
B.
work.
Because going
A
through
B in
college,
finite is genius
doing
level.
that through high school, I've heard it, but like that college shit, man, it's too much going on to get straight A's in college.
Did you cheat in college?
Did I cheat?
In school? Did you ever cheat on anything?
No.
Basically, how dare you ask me that?
imbecile?
Do I look like someone who cheats?
You
on
never
tests?
slid your study guide in with your test and just flipped and had that thing?
No, I never did stuff
And
like
that's
that.
bold. I'm not doing that either.
Man.
Nigga, that's easy.
You're Yara on that shit.
You're
I'm not
wild.
I
cheating.
work so hard.
Why you got so much paper on your desk, nigga?
Because I'm in a class of 100 people and she
He's
gave me
definitely.
a
I'm
4-page
grown.
test.
That's him.
Sure,
Yeah.
fuck.
I'm grown. That's
But
you,
listen,
yeah.
there were a couple years in high school where Lawrence was homework for 2. So we had Spanish and anatomy.
We had
together.
Spanish, yeah, Spanish and anatomy together.
Assuming in my class.
And
Hell
Lauren,
no.
Lauren was definitely
Hell
doing our homework in both those classes, man.
You wouldn't have touched the dish in the house. That homework done? Give me this dish. I got this shit. You don't clean nothing in here. You wouldn't have done nothing in the house. Nothing.
But she was definitely
You
looking out,
want
man.
some You hungry? You
But
want this sandwich?
I,
You're an enabler. You know, he still can't speak Spanish because of you.
And you're fine. Nothing wrong with you.
Well, it's actually,
Listen,
it's actually a big part of his life now.
It's a
He should-
problem.
I am.
He should be able to speak
Damn.
Spanish.
Damn, you're not fine.
I'm not. But I'm going to
You're
get
not.
better.
This is your
If you
fault.
for my job, so I have a few Spanish speaking families on my caseload, and I knew that coming into it. So I their moms will help me like learn phrases and learn words to use, and so I've practiced so many times that like now in session I pretty much can use Spanish.
Culture relevant. I'm
That's
proud
the
of
genius
you.
level
So one
work.
of my long-term goals is to be like a bilingual pediatric speech
Because
pathologist.
it's more bad.
Oh yeah, ooh,
It'll
bag,
El Bago.
big bag attached to that.
L bag.
Mucho dinero.
I wanted to preface, use that to preface my next question. So I really want you to understand why you decided to go into speech and language and why you're so passionate about it. Well, you could have done, anything.
So my senior year of high school, so probably since I could remember, I always wanted to be a lawyer. I have an argumentative side.
I've heard.
Yep. So I had an internship my senior year of high school at the nice law firm over here off of 465. Like, you used to be able to see the sign. I don't even know if it's there anymore, but my supervisor had recently like fired his paralegal, and I came on. Yeah.
Oh my God.
All this school,
These
man.
things.
You are blowing his mind.
Okay.
High school. Oh my God.
At Pike, if you like had so many credits, you could like you only had half days, and you could like choose to. I don't know if you had the option of like doing an internship.
Work-based learning.
Whatever. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I did it at the nice law firm, and he was like, I was like writing like living wills, and he was like, oh, you just have to do it this way. And like, I don't know, just the whole thing completely turned me off. And I was like, if this is how law is going to be, like, I can't just sit in an office and like
Do what I'm told and just
write things.
Write
and
affidavits.
Whatever. Even though that wasn't like an honest picture of law, but it kind of like turned me in a different direction. And then I started working at this daycare called Small Blessings, which is now closed.
That sounds black owned.
It was not.
Damn. That's our shit.
But it was a great place to
Niggas
work.
will open up a daycare quick.
4 Angels Daycare.
Yeah. God's babies.
I go to
daycare,
those. I go to
LLC.
those. Go to all those weekly.
God's babies.
For
Heaven on
therapy.
Earth massage parlor.
We love that shit. It's our favorite thing in the world.
It is. So Small Blessings, no, it was not black owned. But I worked there and I did like infant room, toddler room, preschool, and I loved it. Like I loved working with kids, and that's where I was like, okay, like this, I like going to work, so I need to do something with kids, but I didn't know exactly like what I wanted to do. And then my mom was like, well, what if you did speech pathology? And I was like, what?
Damn. Now that's because that's what mom was.
Yeah, mom's undergrad or mom's degree is in speech and hearing sciences. So she knew what a speech pathologist was, and she was like, oh, like you could do this and this is how it looks. And I was like, okay,
Planted
sure.
a mean seed.
Yeah.
Man. Crazy.
So then got to IU, majored in it, and then when I got to IU, one thing that like pushed me forward was I volunteered at the Middleway House, which is the domestic violence shelter there, and I did their child care program. And like the kids that came in, like, you know,
they was in there beating them up, man, at the Midway House. Well, that's how they got there.
I'm about to say I hope they
well,
don't get
right.
Not
so
the
they're
time.
so
Yeah,
they're
that's-
survivors of like neglect, abuse, trauma. We call them like
Wow.
ACEs, like adverse childhood experiences. So kids that face ACEs, they're like 35% more likely to have like speech and language delays.
Right.
So like I would like as I was like studying speech and language, I would go and volunteer and like see some of the kids that would struggle to just like communicate with like a word. And so that kind of like drove me in this direction of like how environment, culture, and like parenthood can like alter speech and language development.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got
Well, very good. And now you're excelling, doing great things. So
trying.
and because of that, now you decide to start this program called Early Intervention in Color to better support families in need or caregivers that are dealing with kids
Yes.
from ages of 0 to 3, equipping them with the appropriate tools they need. So why did you create this initiative?
So I created this resource because through this early intervention setting.
Wait, before you get into that though, where can people find EI in Color?
Oh, it's EI, which stands for early intervention,
On
EI_in color on Instagram. And our plan is to move into like Facebook next year. But we just wanted to start on Instagram because we felt that millennials probably, it's like a quicker way to like get information is like scrolling through Instagram. You click on it, you watch a video, or you see like a little picture that pops up with like information on it. So that's kind of like our target. Kids that have, not kids, adults that have toddlers right now. But we do want to expand to Facebook.
Them people on Facebook don't want our information.
Very good.
People
Well,
on
we'll
Facebook
see.
kids
I don't
are
know.
15 or better anyway.
Yeah.
Facebook is crazy. I don't know. Y'all not on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. Heavy. It's a different world. It's a good time.
It's stuck in the 70s.
Check it out. No,
Stuck in the 70s.
no, it's there. Just
I
gotta
have
go
a
there.
I have an impromptu question. I'm let's say I'm a young parent, and I'm not sure if my child is lacking development or needs development. They go to daycare every day, everything's fine, but how do I know when I need to reach out to someone like you that offers these services? Like what are my indicators?
That's a great question because my son's a Thornberry, and we were worried for a little bit. Like, we can't tell. Are you cool? You seem cool.
So
And before you answer, I also know in the black community we struggle with.
Yeah,
We do.
man.
I-
Big
Our
time.
baby, my baby's fine, nothing wrong.
Yep.
His sister was
Yep.
just like that.
He gonna be
So,
all right.
Yep.
What are indicators and how do I get over the barrier of maybe my baby's not fine and I need to get it help so he can be fine?
So a lot of times the very first person that intervenes, quote unquote, is the pediatrician. Now, in my personal experience, sometimes pediatricians, especially pediatricians that aren't developmental pediatricians, because there's a big difference, they do not recommend services like at the right time, or they're kind of like, they don't ask the right questions. So then those things like speech and language get kind of glazed over. They might be like, are they talking? And the parent might be like, yeah, but like maybe the kid has like 10 words and they're like 2.
Eat.
Right.
Right, exactly. So, but that, like you said, to your point, and like going back to Wesley's question, so within my work so far, a lot of times, so most of my caseload is Black. So I have, like I said, I have like 25 kids, probably like 17 of them are African American, which is what I love because this is the demographic that I want to work with. When I come into a home and the family sees me as a therapist of color, they're like,
we good.
Yeah, and they feel more comfortable asking me questions.
So let me ask you this.
Maybe they don't feel as
That's
judged.
how black mothers love to address a question that's important. So let me ask you this. The other day,
Right.
Little David had came over here.
Exactly.
He said, "Shut the fuck up," but
And you know what? Sometimes I run into things.
I didn't know he knew those words.
Yeah, I don't say those type of words. I ask and shit, but I don't shut the fuck up around my baby.
And Kyrie,
So-
when I tell you that there are some parents that will speak to me, and I'm like, okay, but then it's like you meet them where they are, right? I'm not gonna if that's how you communicate, then I'm going to do my best to meet you where you are. I'm not gonna judge you. And we're going to try to like break down exactly what it is that you're saying. And then we're going to put it into like clinic terms and then kind of like go from there. But what I've noticed is that black families tend to wait longer to get services.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we got to make sure we can afford it first, too.
Very true. Very true.
And the thing about First Steps, for everyone listening, First Steps is typically free. So even my families that are, like middle to upper class, they might pay like maybe $3 or $6 a session.
Where can we find First Steps? What is that? How do I get
First Steps has a
contact with
website. You can log on to First Steps.
I'm gonna guess it's
if you
First
just
Steps
like Google First Steps is the kind of like overarching developmental program in Indiana for birth to 3-year-olds. And they have a website. If you want to go on there and request an evaluation, you can do that. You don't have to go through your pediatrician. To get an eval?
Yeah.
Yes.
Evaluation is always free. I've heard. I work with people that work with people.
Eval is free. The service coordinators are great. Everybody comes to you. They come to your house. They come where you are. They meet you where you are. They do the paperwork for you. They get a plan for your kid if the kid qualifies, and then services take place in their natural environment, which is either their house or daycare or a caregiver's, home. But like, okay, so my youngest kids on my caseload are typically white. They come in at 16 months. Oh, Johnny, like, he's only saying like apple.
He can only do, factors of one, and it should be 3 by now.
Because they reading the Hunger Games.
Well, that's the thing. So it seems like there's this gap. There's this gap of knowledge, right? And I mean, we could speak to why that is, but there's this gap of knowledge.
We all know.
And we all know. And so those kids start early intervention younger. The earlier you start, the better the results. Mm-hmm. My black kids can tend to come on like, maybe like after 27 months, 30 months, and you age out at 36 months. So I can only work with them for a little bit amount of time.
Putting the issue on layaway.
So it's just right, because it's like, well, we were just gonna wait, and it's that if you don't know, you don't know, right? But if you know better, you do better. So that's one of the reasons why Kia and I, she used to be my coworker. We used to work for the same agency, but now she's doing private practice, like an autism center. But we were always getting together. Kia's like a mentee to me. She graduated a couple years after me, and so she would come to me about some of her like the issues she was having in like visits and sessions, and we would just discuss problems that we were seeing. And so we both were like, this is a big problem that we're seeing. How can we address it? So,
what are some of those mistakes that? Well, you actually already talked about those. But what are some early warning signs, though? Like just some things where it's kind of like, okay, this should definitely be something I need to go ahead and log into First Steps, make an account.
Yeah. So
get that going.
One thing I want to mention, there's a great website called 0to3.org.
0to3.org.
Yes, 0to3.org. And you can see
milestones.
milestones.
Is that spelled out or is that numbers?
It's spelled out.
Okay.
It's spelled out, 0to3.org. Milestones. There's apps where you can see like, oh, at this age, so-and-so should be using this.
Have any names of those apps?
Pressure.
No, shit, she know all shit.
Okay. Well, this is one thing that I don't know, but there are, if you go to 0to3.org, you can search for them.
Apps.
All right, okay. Gotcha.
And there's like EI and color, and we're trying to make sure that we are being very clear cut about what milestones should look like.
Right.
In regards to speech and language. But there are milestones like gross motor skills, like is my kid holding their head up? They should be holding their head up at a certain time. Gross motor is like big actions like walking, crawling, keeping your head up, using like big body movements. Fine motor is like grasping something with your fingers, reaching over midline, which is like the middle of your body. So when your kid has delays in those areas, typically they might have like speech and language delays because all of those things precede speech and language development. You can't you can't access speech and language if you don't know where your body is in space, right? If I can't hold my head up, I'm focused on like my balance and my equilibrium and where I am. I'm not focused on like listening to like language input. So
these are gems, people.
Yeah, this is important stuff.
Yeah.
so you have to watch out
parents,
for all of those like gross motor, big movement milestones, fine motor, small movement milestones. Those are like key indicators of, you know, cognitive and thus speech and language development. And also some other like red flags for infants and toddlers is, you know, are they making eye contact? Do they want to engage with you socially? Do they respond to their name? If I call an 18-month-old should consistently respond to their name. Every time I say they should look. If they're not doing that, that's a concern. Do they follow directions? If you tell them, hey, so-and-so, go get your shoes, routine directions, like routines that they do every day. Go get your shoes. Okay, put your jacket on. Close the door. Give me a high five. Stand up. Sit down. They should be able to do all of those things.
Hand motions are coming.
She's in her bag.
So, but you're looking, and also when your infant is like really quiet, you know, from birth to like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, they should be cooing, making sounds. If they're quiet, concerning. If they're not babbling, putting like,
Yeah.
well,
So
that's like a coo.
That's
So
a
a
coo.
coo is like vowel sounds, open vowels. Ah, ooh, ee. And then babbling. Babbling is when you combine consonants and vowels. Ba 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 da da da.
Oh, okay.
Right. Start ad-libbing.
Yes, jargon. They're like, you know,
Yeah.
and then the jargon turns into
Early
real
Migos.
words, and then the real
Early
words
Migos.
What you talking about?
turn into phrases,
Early
and then
Migos
phrases
fire,
turn
don't
into
disrespect.
sentences. So there's this trajectory, and so when those milestones aren't being met, especially like between like if you're not seeing at least a few words at 1 year old, then you know you can wait a few months. By like 15, 18 months, a kid should have like 25 words, and that's like minimum. Like
Okay.
baseline,
I'm
bottom.
I'm sorry, I'm asking questions.
Now go ahead.
What is it? Is it important to? And I'm not a parent, but I have a cousin, and he told me this. He always does with his kids. He never baby talked with his children. It's always regular talk. What are you doing?
I'm big on that.
So is that important? I promise I'd always do it because I watched it work.
So we call it motherese, and it's like when you're like, oh no,
Yeah.
I got you, da da da.
Yeah.
So that's important up until a certain time.
Okay.
So like motherese is important in infancy, and then once your child does start, you know, maybe they're like 9 months old and they're imitating like babbling sounds, or you know, they're imitating actions. Like if I'm tapping, they're tapping. Then you can move towards more like adult like speech when you're talking to them. And that's the key. You always want to talk to your kids, even when they're like a day old. You want to have a conversation with them. You're talking to them. And I think that's the thing that people miss is like, oh, they're just a baby.
They're a
like
human being.
they're not paying
Right.
attention to me, or they don't. That's like the prime period to be labeling, reading, talking constantly. I tell my clients' parents all the time, if you're not tired of talking, then they're missing
need to
out
talk
on
more.
opportunities. Yeah.
Got you. That was a
I
lot.
always wondered that because I mean I know people fall in love with baby. That's my
Right.
boo.
Yeah.
Stop talking to my son like that.
Yeah, it's versus what you do today. Was fun daycare fun? I know I can't get an ansser, but
Yeah.
he's getting
Right.
these questions.
Yeah.
He or she's getting questions all the time.
So I
You
see.
hungry?
I like how I did agree with you on the Instagram. How you guys the EI and Color got on Instagram because it is for millennials. I like how the videos. I watch the videos every time. They're short and sweet. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to watch a 45-minute video. You know, people
Right.
get bored.
Unless
Tell
it's
me
us.
Yeah.
Right.
Watch this shit.
Keep this shit going.
So tell me how I always watch the videos with the toys. Tell me how the toys.
This guy.
Tell me I'm going somewhere else with it. But tell me the importance of the toys.
Okay, so one thing about early intervention is the model should be play-based and routine-based. So play-based is when you're maybe like alternating a sit-down activity, like playing with a certain toy, and I'll get into like certain types of toys, but playing with a certain toy, and then like maybe you're getting up and doing a social game like Ring Around the Rosie, or you're like using a therapy ball to like bounce the kid that's like hyperactive. But then you're also working on language and routines, like especially when you want parents to be involved, hand washing, toothbrushing. Simple as like, oh, show me your toothbrush. Oh, here it is. Oh, we're gonna brush our teeth.
Right.
So like one of the big parts of my job is like teaching these young parents or millennial parents like how to use language and routines, because a lot of times parents we're not about to sit down for an hour and play with, you know, these spinny gears. So, but I am gonna like bathe you, I'm gonna put your clothes on every day, I'm gonna do these routines, wash your hands, go to the bathroom. So routines, you target language in the routine. That's like the most practical, functional, evidence-based way to target speech and language for toddlers is routines. But for toys, like I do have families where we work on routines and then we sit down and use a toy. So we never use like electronic toys, like toys that talk for your kids, like push Elmo and he's like, hi, I'm Elmo. Like we don't do that. We use like very basic toys with lots of manipulatives. So like if I have
push the button, it lights up.
Depending on the kid.
Okay.
So that's like a cause and effect toy, right?
Okay.
So a kid that's working on like cognitive skills like problem solving, cause and effect, it's like, oh, how do I get this thing to work? I put the ball in, I push it down, it pops out. Cause, effect. But other toys, like Potato Head. So like I feel like millennials wouldn't be like, I'm going to the store to buy my kid Potato Head,
No.
right? It's
Just play it out.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
But Potato Head is a classic, like, perfect toy to use.
Show me
because-
nose.
Yep. Kyrie, yes, you got it. So there's manipulatives, right? So you work on requesting.
You almost got a treat.
If I have,
Yeah, close. A sticker.
good job, high five. I like
Thank
it.
you.
Yes.
And like giving positive praise. But anyways, I keep all of my stuff in a plastic bag, right? Because I want the
I've seen
kid.
your bag.
I want the kid to initiate a request. So if I have it and we call the strategy withholding, then they're going to have to use some form of communication, whether it's sign for more, please, or a verbal, or maybe they're using like a picture binder to tell me that they want what's in the bag. And so that's working on that initiation. If your kid is not initiating, like coming up to you and being like, or like pointing, red flag. They need to point. They need to be intentional about communication, even if it's not a real word, red flag. So with the toys, you want to have multiple manipulatives, and that way
Hope y'all taking notes, man.
you're withholding the toys, and they're having to ask for each one. If I have all the Potato Head parts in the bag, they're having to look at the bag, and I can be like, oh, do you want the mouth or the nose? Do you want the shoes or the eyes? And then you can be like, oh, here's shoes. Where's your shoes? Point to your feet. Okay, now we're going to put it on Potato. You work on all these concepts with these like very simple, basic stackers. You just like take one. Oh, tell me block, and then like give them the block, and then they put it on top, and you keep going.
This is fascinating.
So it's a very repetitive, systematic way to target all kinds of different skills that these toddlers are lacking when they have developmental delays.
Man, we said earlier, take the notepads out. We're not playing.
This is important.
One thing that you brought up, you know, as you've grown into your career, this use of screen time, something that you're definitely against for new parents.
Okay. Let's not use completely against.
Lauren, why are you doing
Okay.
this?
Before
Now.
I'm
we
not
get into
completely
that-
against screen time, but
You
there
gotta
are
fuck
certain.
across the table on you, my
No,
nigga.
There are certain.
I know her.
I'm not completely against it, but there are certain. Just like everything in moderation, right? But screen time needs to be like mild. So
my kid watch TV when she watches them.
So the issue with they
Yeah, but
get to
she's-
watch Netflix, but I'm also like engaging with them. In play.
Absolutely. But she
well,
likes,
I
you know,
did
it
when I
happens.
babysat.
Oh, that's all they did over there. I already know what it is.
He took a nap.
Okay, so
This is what we watching.
Y'all
What's
ready to
next?
come watch TV with Kylo? Cool.
What y'all doing in that? Put that out.
Deuce couldn't get up. Deuce was asleep the whole time. It was just me and Lala like, with trolls next. Let's do it.
So the issue with screen time is that the toddlers that are, you know, they're toddlers now, or maybe like we call them digital natives, right? Like they were born into a life where there are tablets, there are screens, all these things.
Yeah.
So
Tearing
a
them
lot
up,
of
too.
them are having issues with social interaction, communication, problem solving, perseverance, because they're spending all their time looking at screens or watching kids play on YouTube. But there's no back and forth interaction. There's no like, oh, well, like if Susie takes a turn, I need to do this to figure out how it's there's no problem solving because everybody wants to be on a tablet and there's no interaction. So there's lots of more information and research coming out about screen time and how it affects kids. But
I feel like us as parents will look at it like, oh, they smart. They know how to work the YouTube. Look at them taking the ad off so
Right.
quick.
Yeah, they cancel my
You
phone
know how
call.
to work all through that.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
not really.
They know my
when
code.
there are kids with significant cognitive delays that can work a tablet.
You know what I'm saying, right? So, but
So
you
it's
think
not
they're
that
smart though,
right? Exactly, but it's not that big of a deal. But it needs to be limited. So like, there's this thing called like screen time diet. So maybe you give them their tablet like, even in the car. I'm not really a fan of.
But you ain't never drove with a screaming toddler in your backseat.
That's true. But what were people? But what were people doing when there were no tablets?
That's what I'm saying. That's
scary. I have no
when
idea.
you
issue.
if you, especially for kids that do have like language delays, and that's the perspective that I'm coming from, you want to be like talking to them when you're in the car. Like even when I was little and I would be riding in the car with Grammy was like talking to me while we were in the car, and I was like 3 or 4.
I'm just devil advocating because my kids don't get the phone in the back seat because they can't have my phone, and 2, I'm
Right.
not paying for data for a tablet, so
Right.
you're just kind of back there right now.
And I just
Listen to this music.
Screens are good if it's like
I used to sleep in the car. I'm going to
if
sleep.
there's some like parallel engagement, like if you're looking at the screen with your kid and talking about like I sometimes I use this like Easy Bake Oven app, but it's like a great language based app where I'm like, oh, okay, are we gonna make cookies or cupcakes? Cupcakes, and then we like mix the batter, mix. Okay, put the water in. Do. Okay, now it's my turn, your turn. Like we're doing turn taking, so I'm
that's a lot, boy.
engaging.
Hope you're
You're
ready.
ready. You're ready.
Get
'Cause
ready.
your child
I'm
ain't gonna be on that
engaging while
screen.
I'm
Oh
using
yeah,
the
boy,
screen.
it's over
And
for
also-
TT
Atlanta.
over here. You cancel that, Jack.
Lele is toast.
And
So
at
they
one-
don't.
At one point, it's gonna be so much Spanish, she ain't gonna know what to do.
Oh my god.
When she really digging her bilingual bag and just leave you behind, it's over.
But that's the thing. It should be like intentional. Like I understand giving them that, like even using it for a reward. Like wow, like thank you for picking up all of your toys. Here's tablet for 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Man,
Yeah.
5 minutes.
There are other
You
things they
only
can
got
be doing besides being on their
4
tablets.
minutes, dude.
Also, screen time is
How long
also.
the YouTube video is?
Better
2
watch a
minutes
clip.
ads.
Better watch a clip.
Damn.
But everything in moderation, right? Maybe
What I
it's
tell
5
y'all
minutes
earlier,
at that
man,
time, but
some
then they
fools
get like 10 more
tablets.
minutes like later.
Okay.
And I will say that people of color tend to give their kids more screen time than our counterparts.
Damn it.
There's a study.
So here's my
that
thing.
there's a study that just came out about that.
Obviously, I'm very old school. I didn't have no tablet.
Right.
Okay, I know.
What
that.
do we
Now,
do?
Of my mother's
Came
children,
from the 60s.
my
nigga, wasn't no tablets.
my middle brother was the screamer in the back seat. Like it was him.
Yeah, that's just sketch.
It was put him. We did. It was him in the back of the car.
Hey, mama, he shook my boy before I was done.
Going crazy, screaming like she had to pull over sometimes. But she didn't have a tablet. You had a rattle damn near in the 80s, which is when he was born. Me too.
Right,
Kids
this
is
guy.
different.
I
So-
was
so
too.
they
I
are.
got
So,
it.
so
with
it's
the sleep.
doable, and I mean, you didn't have a tablet. I mean, there's so there are
Nah, we
things that
didn't.
can be done, but it's the norm. It's like kids don't go outside that much
Right.
because they play inside on the tablet.
There's a list, and maybe I'll post it on EI in Color, of alternate activities besides screens. And maybe we can post that so people can have more ideas of like, what do you do when you're in the car? Even kids at restaurants with like watching tablet, eating. And with my current job, I do feeding too. So like sometimes toddlers have issues like with their feeding skills. So maybe they overstuff and they gag, or they have aversions to different foods. So we do like food chaining to like facilitate them to try different foods. So mealtime is a social experience. So it should be like a positive social experience. So people should be talking while you're eating, you're enjoying your food. And so when people are at restaurants and they're like, here's your tablet, and no one's engaged with
No
them,
bueno.
how do I learn the routine? How do I learn
Get you
the
some.
restaurant schema
Yeah.
when I go to a restaurant?
Schema.
And what I do is go and sit on my tablet. How am I learning that, oh, when I eat a meal, I'm talking to someone, we're taking turns,
Right.
we are...
Elbows out on the table, like little stuff.
Yeah, little
Adults struggle
stuff.
with that though, unfortunately. Like
Yeah,
we
man.
suck
We
at that.
do. We
We're not
do.
supposed to use our phones at the table. Y'all know that.
Oh yeah, Allison be on that.
Question.
We do.
So,
I can do both.
I'm not trying to word it, but like as far as music goes, like you see a lot of with kids, like that seems like the one fast thing to pick up is music. Like,
Yeah.
they'll rap along. Do you feel like that's a plus? Do you use music?
I use music every day,
Okay.
but I'm using like, I'll do like nursery
Taylor Swift.
rhyme. No,
Cool. Just make sure. Had to check.
I'll do any like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, Old MacDonald, like Patty Cake, like music that has like gestures and actions. So,
Muffin Man.
like, Wheels on the Bus.
Got you.
You know, the Muffin Man is one of the greatest songs ever created.
Yeah.
For people
And
to
Do you
find.
know the Muffin Man?
And a lot of times too, I'll play like music in the
Itsy Bitsy
background
Spider, you know what
for
I'm
some
saying?
of my kids that have a hard time. Like some kids have like sensory issues, so they need something to like have in the background. I mean, there's a lot of
But we
ways
don't
to
want
set up
them,
a session.
You know, singing Bad and Bougie.
Right.
Is that the problem though?
I mean,
Like
It's a
raindrop,
very complex
drop
song.
top.
It's a lot of words in there.
Right. You gotta teach them the moves.
Raindrop, drop top. Smoking on cooking that hot box.
We're also,
I think we lost it.
We're
in
not the
Hot Box.
experts.
so I think that when you're a parent, it's kind of like, is this really something, you know? But I mean, when you're like, say you're in the car and you're listening to like 96.3 and 98.3 and your kids are in the car, I mean, it's not the
end of the world.
No, not at all.
Gotcha.
And all this to say, I mean, you have to do what works for your kids. But there are a lot of things that we do not do because it's convenient for the parent, and we have to think about what's convenient for the child.
Yeah.
I assume I'm not a parent, so I cannot just.
I'm
be
not
like,
either.
That's
This
right.
is just what I
I think it's great because like Lauren is definitely more stringent on stuff. So like it'll help dial, even if you're not gonna do what she says, it'll help you dial you back something. Like the average parent's 5 minutes on tablet is tough.
2 hours screen time,
But they'll feel
And
like,
I don't know what
damn, I'm doing 5 hours. I got to at least dial. She said 5 minutes. I
And
got
I
to at
don't
least
know-
bring it back to an hour.
And I don't know what that's like because I'm not a parent, but I think that when you introduce your kids to technology, there needs to be like a lot of structure with it. That's what it is. They shouldn't just have access to their tablet whenever.
So basically, you got to start early.
My brother got that bitch.
Start early as possible.
Okay, but that's funny. But your brother's how old?
My brother's 7.
Right, so he's 7 now.
He sleep with that thing.
So,
But yes,
what am I
that's-
doing with my
Keep that thing
7-year-old?
on.
Even if 1 through 3 or 0 to 3, I'm very I monitor heavily. When they're 6 and say I want to get on tablet,
You're still the parent.
Yeah, but I'm just like,
And you can always just like TV. Like I feel like when we were kids, TV was like the big thing. Like
We only had a
don't
couple in the
watch
house.
too much TV.
Yeah,
like it's
that
gonna
was
da da da
it.
da da.
Yep.
But it's like everything in moderation, right? Or even like using those things as like a reward. Like okay, well first you need to do this, this, and this, and then you can do this.
that's fair.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? First, you
Well,
have to,
for a lot of black people, especially,
Dessert.
you only had cable on 1 or 2 boxes, maybe. I mean, you had cable downstairs, cable in your parents' room.
That's
And
how
if
our
you
house
were-
is right
if
now.
you were lucky, you got cable in your room. I ain't never had cable in my room
I did.
in my life
Couple years.
until I was in my 20s living at home.
Older for me, yeah.
It was
But I
The
was gonna make
Simpsons,
that
it was
regular TV show.
Seinfeld, it was Coach, because you could get, you had antenna. But
Third right from the sun.
so you didn't even have the option to be like, I'm going upstairs.
yeah.
Friends.
Right, but it's just like figure out. And again, not a parent, but there was a time when we didn't have so it's like, how can I engage my kids? Like, if you can't sit down and play with them, maybe they can help you. Like, I don't know, mix the food or whatever. Yeah. We call that like when you're engaging your child into routines, like you're giving them more independence to help you out.
Independent living skills?
No, not independent living
Nigga, who you
skills. But you're just like exposing
I'm
them.
showing my hand a bit
He
here.
did his master's.
It's kind of like Montessori, like you're exposing them to doing things on their own. So if you're worried about like, well, I don't know what they're gonna be doing if
You
they
see this
sit on
polo,
their
nigga?
tablet, like, oh my god,
I'm official.
See this motherfucker
Guys.
polo, nigga. I'm sorry, you the one wore it.
Not the polo.
And I don't know why he did that. He did it again. He's an asshole, man.
We cut her off. Let's keep. We
no, it's fine.
Oh,
I'm just saying you
so-
can find kids can be creative. They're built to be creative. They're built to do imaginary
Right.
play and pretend play. So they're gonna figure out something to do without a tablet.
There's been a lot of gems dropped, and we're very appreciative. I did want to go into.
I have one more.
Okay, go ahead, Deuce.
All right,
Then I'll
so-
get into what I want to get into.
In your field, like, do you see this more often with like a parent's first child or the second child? Because I feel like a lot of times the first child people are a lot more detailed, and the second child comes along, and then they miss some things.
Like screen time.
Just in general.
Oh, in
Do you
general.
feel like you see more like of the first kids in your daily routine, or like the second child?
So for what I do, typically I see like the first kid.
Okay, so these are
And then a lot
Looking
of
in the
times the parents will be like, can you work with so-and-so, like the sibling who's not talking or who's delayed? So I'll get their siblings.
okay.
And then a lot of times they'll have older kids and their kids were in first steps. So they're like, oh, I'm putting so-and-so in first steps because I know so-and-so had it and they need extra support or
But
whatever.
I imagine even for you, a future parent, kid 1 is 5 minutes.
He just put a baby on you.
Kid 2, eventually, I assume she wants to have children someday. I don't know.
I do.
Kid 2 might be like, Just take the tablet and shut up.
Right.
And kid one's like, Mama,
That's real life.
what the I couldn't get more than 5 minutes. Look.
Deuce always has the tablet.
Look.
Right.
Your brother's upset. I don't have time for this. Shut up, Kimmy.
So right there.
Is your
And that
room clean?
happens.
You get him the tablet down.
Deuce
And that-
never helps to clean up before he watches television.
Right. So I feel
And
like
that happens. It's not going to be perfect, but again, if you create the boundaries and you try to create some structure around tablets and technology, and you're consistent, it's up to your discretion. It's up to your discretion.
It takes time.
It does.
And discipline.
It does.
For
And
the
so
parent.
I'm sure that's exhausting, right? Like, and so it's just all about like, one, I feel like when you do your own research about it, that helps. When someone tells you like, you shouldn't, this about screen time, if you look it up for yourself and see like, cause the research is new and like you'd research on your own or you hear it from like some of my families who may not do the research. But they like value my input, right? As a developmental specialist, speech pathologist, whatever. And so then they might take that information and be like, okay. Like I had a mom who the kids were having a really time. These kids are like super hyperactive, sensory seeking, bouncing off the walls. And at bedtime, they would like take their mattresses off and throw them on the floor and bounce.
That's natural right
And
there.
have a party.
I got I take
And
the
she
belt
was
off.
like, I don't know what to do. Like they just like won't
Baby's kids.
calm down when they go to bed. And I was like, oh, well, like what's their bedtime routine? She was like, well, they like
the routine
brush their
look
teeth
like.
and then like they get on their tablet. And I'm like,
It's like 1 o'clock, you know what I'm saying? They usually get to bed by 1.
I'm like, well,
start
maybe you
winding
should
them
take
down.
the tablet away
And then I roll up.
before bed. And then
So
when she
crazy.
did that, their bedtime routine completely changed.
Yeah, mothers with kids are terrible. They kids be up all night.
You can't just say that.
Mothers with kids.
mothers with kids. Every mother sucks.
I don't
I know
think
what
you
you
meant
meant,
to say
though.
that way.
Just saying.
I know what
In
you
my
meant.
experience, it's like
How much experience you got with mothers?
Like, damn, your baby's still up. Like, damn, put that nigga.
Oh my
Put that nigga
God.
on the bed.
I
feel like
When we gonna talk? I'm saying
I
that.
I feel like when my mother said it's time to go to bed, I better get my ass in that bed.
I've seen parents whose kids
And they
don't
be like,
have
"Oh, I'm trying to get my kids asleep." Like, why is it 1 o'clock in the morning? This little nigga still up.
Especially no, seriously though, I've
This
seen
sounds
parents
self-serving.
whose kids
Just speaking from experience, nothing right now. I'm just saying, I've heard that in my
I'm
life.
saying I'm trying
parents
to
whose
slide
kids
when
don't
we
go to daycare
bed.
and live at home and their home's their routine. Get under 4, they don't have a school to go to. They stay up late because I'm gonna be up with them tomorrow anyway, and I'm gonna sleep in and they're gonna sleep in.
Shout out to my wife.
Now when they
Parents
have
do that
a
a lot.
routine, that always changes. If we got to be at daycare at 7:30, I promise you, kids not going to bed at 1.
Yeah.
But when I'm at home and we gonna get up at noon tomorrow anyway,
I'm up all
I'm up
night.
at 3. She sitting with me, and
Look.
then there's always the older kid like, "Good night." Yes, y'all gonna be up down here, huh? Yeah, we are. Get you in the morning, okay? Get you some sleep up here. That's kind of how it goes.
That's crazy. I did want to bring up autism. I think there's just a lot more information about it, a lot more awareness now. What are some of the warning signs for that? And then if you do feel as though that your child is autistic, how can you go about getting immediate help?
So
Made the room get
I gotta talk about
It's
it.
important. It's important.
some early red flags are lack of eye contact, lack of drive to engage socially, so lack of interaction with you, lack of interaction with peers, siblings, difficulty with like self-regulation, so like toddlers tantrum, but if they're like it's very hard to figure out like why they're tantruming, and it's like really extreme and intense. Repetitive behaviors, so maybe anytime they eat something, they go like they have to put touch the food to their head or something like that. So like something lining up toys, like lining up cars in a row. Another big sign.
over here
And
like,
some kids,
wait.
I don't know. I used to line the cars up. I
some
don't know.
kids
Hey,
do. Some
listen,
kids do, and that doesn't mean
No
these are just.
cap. I just did an autism check. Like, I used to stay lining my shit up.
Well, the thing is,
I
and
used to
there
touch
are
food with my
kids.
lip.
There are kids that are not on the spectrum that will line things up.
Maybe I
but,
just like my cars in a neat little row. Dang.
yeah, and you
did
line
check.
them
I'm
up,
like,
You
right?
fools let her finish.
I'm like, my
And
mom
then,
missed it.
and then if I go to move one of them,
Y'all good.
you're having a full blown out tantrum,
Okay,
and you
no.
cannot
Oh, yeah,
tolerate
yeah.
me touching it because
We
I
shouldn't
moved
let her
it.
finish. Yeah.
And then also,
I'm cool.
the lack of joint attention. So joint attention is like if I have an object and I look at the object, I would want the kid to look at the object and then look back at me. That's joint attention. And a lot of kids with autism do not have that skill. And they don't have the drive to, like, show you things, initiate. So, like, if a lot of toddlers will come up to you and be like, look. Or, like, they'll be like.
With the remote.
Yeah.
All the time.
Or, like, show you something. Like, but a lot of times kids with autism, they don't do that. And so as far as, like, you might, if you have these concerns, any concerns that you have, you can always go to your pediatrician. But then you can always, like, bring your concerns to the pediatrician, especially, like, a developmental pediatrician, and request an assessment or evaluation through, like.
But you're different. Yeah, assessment and evaluation.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Everybody don't know that.
Gold
that
star
is
for
true.
Reed.
Good job.
Yeah. For sure, nigga.
It's important because you can go ask for it. Like, well, has he been evaluated yet?
But
And
yeah.
I'm like, no.
Then you offended. No, I just asked you to do that.
But yeah, the first step is to bring your concerns to a developmental pediatrician or maybe your pediatrician, and then, you know, request a referral for an evaluation. If they get a diagnosis of autism, there are tons of resources online. Typically, when kids get a diagnosis as a toddler, they're going to have speech therapy. They might have occupational therapy, which is working on, like, fine motor, self-regulation, sensory processing issues. And then they might do behavioral therapy. Like, they might have a developmental therapist who works on play skills, following directions, attention, engagement. Or they might do ABA, which is applied behavioral analysis, where there's, like, a very systematic way of modifying their behaviors, modifying negative behaviors and replacing them with more accepted behaviors.
Well, listen, there you go. Let's give Lauren a round of applause.
Absolutely. A well of information.
A very informative interview. Like I said,
What's that D word from earlier again?
Dentition?
Nope.
No.
Dysphagia.
Dysphagia.
Y'all got that dysphagia. Can't
That one will
fuck with you.
that one will be used again
Okay.
later in the episode.
Oh my God. Okay.
All right, I'll fuck with you.
Alright, I'm a say less.
Oh, say less.
Oh my God.
Hey, y'all see that whole video?
No.
He was wilding.
No.
He said she pulled a titty at it. I said, oh, say less.
He said nigga too, which was
He did.
Oh, did he?
yeah, man.
Well, now it's not funny
Take
anymore.
the fun away from it.
Definitely.
Oh,
yeah.
Little son of a
Oh,
bitch.
say less. But nah. If,
Oh, nigga, say less.
Niggas giving me heebie-jeebies.
Oh my.
where can people find you if they have questions? How can they contact you?
You can contact me on the Instagram. It's EI_in color. You can send a message. You can always comment on some of our videos or posts. And then if you know me personally, you can always just text me.
Hit my line.
Yep.
Hit my line.
Pull up.
Well, that's
I'll
awesome,
send
man.
you a price list.
We got to advocate for this early intervention
We
because
do.
this is the most critical period to get support. So
Very good.
the later you wait, the more deficits
Don't-
or the not more deficits, but your kid might be catching up. More
Don't-
prone to be catching up.
Hibbity-hoobla.
Don't put your knees on layaway. Take care of it,
That's a quote right there.
please.
It's a bar.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I love you. Very proud of you, man. You're very accomplished. And
This was fun.
you had a lot to say.
It's a good time.
For sure.
Love you too.
Next.
Next.